I'm really excited to introduce Ayelet Shmuel, who works for the Israeli Trauma Coalition, who is a social worker. And in the short time that I've known her, is really articulate and caring about those that have experienced trauma, works directly with many people in many parts of the world who have experienced trauma, and teaches those of us who need to be better at working with people who have experienced trauma or are experiencing trauma. So we're going to give Ayelet a minute to get her stuff together. And when you're ready, if you want to share a PowerPoint, go ahead. If you're not, also fine.
Absolutely, Tracy, I can start. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. Next week we'll be in Chicago. So we'll be seeing, I guess, some of the people live. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've lived in Colorado for many years, and I got my license there and my schooling there, and I work for the Israeli Trauma Coalition as one of the trainers in mental health interventions and trauma-focused psychotherapy. I used to be a teacher when I was in Colorado a long time ago, so I understand the challenges of teaching, and I understand the challenges of teaching in a Jewish day school as well. So I think I have a presentation and really a lot of tools that I want to share with you, but I would rather ask maybe a general question for a minute, is because I saw some of the questions that people have as far as what to do when we have all these lockdown drills, how to handle those, what to say. I wonder if there are any questions for people that they want to bring up right now, just to give me an idea, all right, of what we're dealing with. What is the main concern?
Ayelet, this is Roberta Goodman. I want to make sure you know that we do not all work in day schools, that many of us work in congregational schools.
Yes, I understand that, which is like twice a week, right? The Sunday school and then maybe one
Something
afternoon.
like that. Right.
Right. I used to do that.
I just wanted to
too.
make sure.
Yeah. You will be dealing with or nonprofit organizations. All right. Thank you, Ellie.
I teach kindergarten. I'm Rachel. And I know my kids will come in and say, so-and-so was at the shooting, or I was at the shooting, and they'll all want to say what they know about it. And I don't want to shut them down, but I'm not sure what to,
how to do it.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to overexpose, right? People that haven't been, and we don't want to shut down the people that want to talk about it because it's on their minds.
Right.
Make no mistakes about it. It's on their minds. So we're going to get to the tools in a second, but really the idea is to do it in a way that everybody gets what they need. Just as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, drawing, building, making it from Lego figures, from all the not Play-Doh, what do you call it? I forgot the name of it, but the other figures that we can find. So if they can create it instead of talk it, that would be great. And then the ones that you see that really want to talk about it, these are the ones you want to take to the side and maybe give them a chance to say what they know. Now, you always keep it at the kids' level. Always keep it at the kids' level. So if they're saying something, you want to keep it exactly where they're at. So you just go and you reframe what it is that they're saying rather than everything that you know, right? Because we know a lot more than they're gonna, what they're gonna share. I hope that helps. So Tracy, is there a way to bring me back to not being a full screen? Because I scare myself when I see myself like that.
Yes.
I just want to be able to see everybody. And if somebody needs me on a screen bigger, then they can do it for themselves.
Oh, now I feel.
Is that okay?
Yep. There you go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That way I can actually gauge and see where everybody's at. So I'm going to share a presentation, but the idea is for you guys to say something and to stop me and to say, just a second, we don't know what you're talking about. Okay. And so feel free to, to open up your mic and say something, because we have an hour and a half. Believe it or not, it's not enough time to cover what we need to cover. It never is. All right. So we're really talking about how to deal with students, right? With coping with students' distress in the classroom. And we are after a tough encounter. So what happened in the community? If I'm looking at the timeline, this is a very important thing to understand. The fall or the crisis itself happened 2 months ago. In clinical terms, we are right now way past the acute stress disorder phase, but we're not interested in clinical terms. We're interested in behaviors. We're interested in what the kids are going to bring to the classroom. But when people are going to come to you and going to say, depending on the age of the kids, and maybe you're going to hear it from the parents mostly, my kid is traumatic. My kid is post-traumatic. My kid has anxiety over this. You need to understand that pathology aside, you want to look at the symptoms. You want to look at the behaviors in your classroom. This is a good way to know what's going on for the kid. And we're going to talk about flagging some of these things. Now, most of the people, if they have seen symptoms, have already been and gotten help. But it does not mean that it's not going to manifest in your classroom. A lot of the kids don't talk about things. And then when everybody's there, they want to share. Okay. So you'll see that you're gonna see it. It's gonna come up. It's just a matter of what we're gonna do with it. So the first thing we need to know is we need to understand the condition. Okay. Stress in general sits in the body. It sits in the body. Okay. Now think about it this way. Some of the kids have been there in the parade. Some of them were exposed. A lot of them were exposed through the media and through conversations within the community. Whether we like it or not, we have these conversations above our kids' heads all the time, even if we think that they're not hearing us. We say to them that everything is okay and everything is safe, but in the hallways, at home, in a different room, on the phone, we really talk about how we feel. Well, they get it, and it sticks. So the stress, the crisis mode, right? If you go back to the timeline, it sits in the body because you go into it automatically. And then it takes a minute to get rid of all these symptoms. There's a natural healing curve that happens for everyone, not just for kids, after the first 48 hours and then after the first month. But a lot of the times, some of the symptoms are persistent. So you need to know what to look for. You need to know what it is that you're seeing. And if these behaviors have to do with the stress, or they're just being kids and they're just being, behaving the way they are. So in order to know what the symptoms are, you really need to know the kids. So some of you are going to say, well, this is my first time with these kids. I don't know what to expect from them. Well, you're going to have to give yourself a minute to learn something about them. Either this is where you ask a teacher from last year. This is where you talk about with the parents. This is where you get some information, because in order to know if something's up with the child, you need to measure it according to his baseline. So if a kid is usually with good spirit and he has a good mood usually and he likes to joke, and all of a sudden he comes to class with a flat affect, doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to do anything, you have an issue. You see that he's different according to his baseline. If a kid usually is whiny, kind of whines about everything, some kids are like that, and he comes to the classroom and he's whiny, nothing's wrong with him. He's fine, okay? You check it and you measure it according to the baseline of where that kid is at. And in order to do that, you need to know these kids. Do as much as you can to get to know them from the get-go. And I'm going to give some suggestions right here, okay? But and if not, you want to ask the parents. Now, one thing about parents, I will say that parents usually are a great mirror to the kid. If you talk to a parent and he talks about the crises or the trauma in such a way that you see that he's having an issue, then make no mistakes about it. It's going to manifest in the kid. Okay? You always see it. So pay close attention to what's happening with the parent, and then understand what's happening with the kid in the classroom. Like usually, I think it suits for everything that we do as parents.
So Ayelet,
yes.
I want to interrupt just with a note that had been put in the chat.
Sure.
So please remember that our teachers, parents, and larger community, including ourselves, were affected by this occurrence.
Right. And we're going to talk about it in a second.
And
About
then
the shared
also
reality.
ask if maybe you can put your PowerPoint into present mode so it will be bigger for some of the people.
Absolutely. Let me do that right now.
Great.
That better?
Thank
I
you.
hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about the condition that you guys are in, we're talking about shared reality. And shared reality has its pros and cons. Okay. When we all have been to the same stressful situation, I'll give you an example from Israel. I think it's easier to think about it this way. I live in Ashkelon. When rockets are flying, they're flying over my head and my son's head as well. Okay. And then I have to put on a vest and go and help people that their home was hit. So we live in a shared reality. The stress level is high for everybody. The only way to handle it, the only way to do it is to first create a personal assessment, is to go and really narrate what's happening for you first. Where's your mind? Where are your thoughts? What are your symptoms? What is going on for you before you even go and touch and create some kind of an intervention with a child? Now, we understand that as a community, the community kind of took a hit. Not kind of, but they took a hit. You want to be able to speak it and to understand it, and also understand that it's contagious, okay? A lot of the times, what I bring to the table is what a kid is going to take out of it. So we want to be very, very mindful of how we're doing, okay? Now, I'm focusing in this PowerPoint or in this training, whatever you want to call it, on the teacher's role and the teacher's aspect. But whatever you can take out of it for yourselves, that's the way to go. Okay, really everything you can do in both ways. You can go for outside for other people that you have encounter with, and you can do it for yourselves as well. But you have to pay attention. There are going to be peaks of stress in the child or in the community. For example, the high holidays are coming. That's going to create stress, I believe, within your community. It's gatherings a lot of the times, too many people, and people are going to have a hard time with it. You're going to see some peaks in their stress level, okay? And since stress sits in the body, it's not in control. They can't control it. They can just feel it. They feel that something's off, and they can feed off the adults, or they can just have it from their own experience. So we want to watch it. The first rule of engagement is awareness. We have to be aware of what's happening right in front of our noses. Okay, so pay attention to peaks. All these assemblies, okay, we're good with assemblies. We love to do the Friday assemblies, right? And we love to do different kind of assemblies, I think. Pay attention to those because they can create some high level stress for a lot of people, including teachers, okay? Speak it, talk about it, be aware of it. That's the first thing to do. Don't ignore it, okay? I know a lot of times people would rather just do it and be done with it and go back to routine. It's not always the best way to go, but you have to be able to give a platform to have a conversation about it. Your parent is a barometer, and I talked about it before. Look at the parent, and then you'll know what's happening for the child. And yes, half of us within the community have gone through some stuff. So take a good look at it and understand it's going to take time for all the symptoms to be reduced. I want to share some of the main symptoms, because that was one of the questions that was brought up to my attention when I was creating the PowerPoint, is what to look for. So, and I'm not going to go for the pathology, because people are going to tell you, well, after 1 month from an event, from a traumatic event, you can have a PTSD, diagnosis. We don't care. We want to talk about the behaviorals, right, that you're going to see. So some people are going to re-experience the event. Some people or kids are going to feel avoidance and numbness, and some are going to be in hyperarousal. Okay. Now I can tell you that what we see here in this country after 2 weeks ago, we had like a 3-day war. Not a big deal, right? In 3 days, I don't know how many rockets were flying. People were stuck in homes and in bomb shelters. And then we had to everybody said that ceasefire, go back to routine, right? Kind of like in Chicago. We had a shooting, but we're good now. So let's go back to life. Well, how do you do that? Some people do. Some people have a natural healing, and some people have a really hard time, and they exhibit and they go through these symptoms. So let's go over them really quick. Re-experiencing. Now, I'm not talking from a therapist point of view, but as teachers, kids will come to you and they will tell you, I have nightmares, or I have dreams, I'm scared. okay? Or had a dream last night and it was a scary dream, okay? Intrusive recollection of the event, images, thoughts. With kids, you'll see a lot of the times repetitive post-traumatic play. We see it in Israel all the time. So if the kids are playing outside and they are replaying the shooting, they are re-experiencing the event, okay? Now, some kids will say, well, this is my way of dealing with it, right? Or some parents will say, and some will say, well, it scares me, right? What do I do when I have a group of kids and it's not just one-on-one? Want to be mindful. First, understand that this is re-experiencing, right? They're taking all this information and they're doing it again and again and again because it doesn't make any sense to them, okay? The idea is, and I'm gonna hopefully I'll be able to show it to you today. There's a way to do to break down the story for them and create safety within the story, because all these kids are survivors. All these kids have not been hurt. So all of them have something that worked for them, something that actually made them safe somehow. Now, we usually in trauma don't talk about safety. We talk about what didn't work, what was scary. And we can say it was very scary, but what did you do? It was very scary, but where do you sleep? It was very scary, but what does your mom do for you, right? We keep it, we kind of take the story, we put it in chunks, okay? And we look only at the things that worked for you, because the people that we're talking to are the people that have not been hurt. They've been hurt emotionally, absolutely. But that's what we're trying to tackle, right? Now, we cannot open these conversations like that with everybody. We're going to have to be mindful. Questions, Tracy? I think there are, right? Tracy's microphone is off, so I don't know.
Sorry. Okay, here's what's in the chat.
Okay.
The first one that I am going to ask you to address is what is hyperarousal?
We're going to get there in a second.
Okay. And then the second one is what should you do if you hear students talking about it in class with one another? How do we as teachers step in?
I always tell kids that if the kid is talking about something, it means his mind is there. Okay. You want to really tell him what you see. I see that you're talking about this. It seems to be on your mind. What part is on your mind? Because it's never the whole thing. There's always something. What is on your mind? What's on your mind? Some would say, I'm just scared it's going to happen again. Okay. Or some would say, I don't know, I keep on thinking about this and that, right? You want to make sure that it's very accurate. I hear that it's on your mind. I see that it's bothering you. Now, if you're in the middle of the class, you cannot just stop and do, and you're not expected to do therapy sessions, but you can first say, I see that it's bothering you. I see that it's going on for you. Do you want to write it down? Do you want to sit maybe and draw the story? Do you want to take 5 minutes and then rejoin us? Like, give them a second to talk it through, to write it, to draw it, to do something. Don't ignore it, okay? Because if we're going to keep on ignoring it, it's never the right time to talk about these things, ever. So if you allow them just to 5 minutes, take a minute, do something about it. What would you like to do? Or I can talk to you after class if you guys have a minute for that. I don't think you do as teachers. From what I remember, there is no time, but don't ignore it. So I can see that it's on your mind. If you feel the confidence to, and it's just the beginning stages, to say, is there anybody else that this is on his mind? If you feel confident enough to do it, ask. And then maybe some people are going to raise their hands. You're going to say, yes, it's bothering me. You want to ask what? What exactly is the issue, where it sits? And you will be surprised sometimes with the answers that kids give. It's not always what we think. Make no assumptions. Always ask which part, because we never know. I get surprises all the time. And then I ask, when you feel this way, when this is on your mind, what usually works? What works for you? When you feel like this, when you feel like you want to talk about it, when you feel like you're thinking about it, what works for you. Okay. And then give them a second to think. The whole idea, and we're going to get there in a second, is that you want to speak resiliency to these kids. And speaking resiliency means you want to talk about the challenge, but you want to talk about the strengths. You want to talk about the challenge, but you want to empower them at the same time, give them back the control. This is how we do it. We're not saying that there is no problem. We're saying there is a problem. What are you going to do about it? What strength are you going to use? What resource are you going to use? What usually works for you? Okay. We bring up their self-efficacy and the feeling that they can handle this, even though it is uncomfortable. Okay. We don't take away their uncomfortable feeling. We can't. I can't make this event happy. It's not. But I can make them feel that they have some sense of control over their thought, over their body, over the fact that they're not feeling good about it. You pay attention, you notice them, you give them a platform for choices, and you let them choose. You give them back to control. Okay, that's really, it sums it up in a minute and a half, but we're going to get there in a second. With all these tools, that's why I want to kind of go through the symptoms so you'll know what to look for. So play reenactment, flashbacks, they do that all the time. They play it. We have kids playing sirens in school, like the color red, Tseva Adom, which is the siren in Sderot. They play it all the time. That's their way of saying, okay, I am in this. Okay, it's a little sad, but it's also a resilient way for kids to take this out of their system and to gain some control. Reaction to trauma reminders, of course, you'll have psychological ones and physiological ones. So the ones that we're really worried the most are the physiological ones because we can see it. If you have a kid that the re-experience or having some kind of a memory or reminder of the trauma or a trigger will get them to have some physical symptoms like hyperventilating, okay, inability to breathe, feeling like they have pressure on their chests. Some kids will feel nauseous, some will vomit. They'll have stress reactions. Physical stress reactions are very big. You want to pay attention to that. It means that there's a trigger. Sometimes the trigger is not something that we thought about. Sometimes the trigger is, something that they saw on the scene and now they're seeing it and it brought back the body, right? It's not from here. It's automated response. Pay attention to it. You will need to, I think, know how to do that. There is a breathing exercise that works like magic, and I'll share it with you in a second when we go over the tools, okay? But really understand that going into these modes of stress, of peaks, if somebody's going to panic within your classroom, it's automated and it's a split of a second. An example that I have from Sderot, where I work, is that sometimes we talk to a bunch of kids and the door slams and everybody startles, everybody jumps, and then the heart races and some people really go into a full panic mode because all it took is one reminder for them to be in the trauma, okay? And then you have to work really hard to get them out of there. Hopefully this is not the case and this is not the stuff that you guys are going to see. I'm hoping, but we'll get there in a second. Avoidance is huge. Pay attention to kids that will avoid activities or places or people that remind them of the trauma or avoid talking about it, feeling it, or thoughts. You as teachers should not be worried about avoidance of thoughts because I think it's good for you. You don't need it in the classroom. You really don't. This needs to be done somewhere else. But you will see avoidance of activities. Kids will not want to go outside, will not want to go to assemblies, will not want to do things that have a lot of people in them. Anything that reminds them of the traumatic event, pay attention to it, don't make them. Or do what we do, create a plan. Say, okay, what are we worried about exactly? And once I know what exactly it is, let's create a plan. Step by step by step, how do you get out of the classroom and into the assembly and what will work for you? And if you get scared, what are the things that you're gonna do? Okay, you create a plan. This is how we do it when we work with soldiers. This is how we do it when we work with jet pilots. That's usually how it's done. You make a plan for every challenge and every step of the way. Okay, so you do it with a kid that says, I'm not going. It's too much. I'm not going outside, for example, right now is not safe. I'm not going to go outside. Some kids, after the shooting, I am sure, not want to go to school. Some kids are going to try and avoid it as much as they can because shooting in a parade and shooting in schools is just way too similar. And kids are going to make that attachment, and you're going to have an issue with it. So you want to tell them, okay, I understood. It is scary. What is the plan? How we're going to tackle it one step of the time, at a time. That's how it's done. Moving on to avoidance, again, diminishes interest in participation in significant activities in children. Restriction in play, you'll see that some kids will not want to play, will not want to do things. Just pay attention to it. You're not the psychotherapist, but you want to get them back to functioning. You'll see some kids that will be detached from other people. Social kids that don't have social issues that all of a sudden don't want to play and don't want to be with other people. That is a sign, okay, that there's more to it and that they're closer to having some post-traumatic stuff going on for them. Pay attention, maybe flag them. This is a good time to call the school counselor. This is a good time to tell the parents. I would look into it, okay? A kid that is isolating himself and is maybe also the affect is a little numb, you want to flag it. You want to say, hey, I think we have an issue. I would not attempt any psychotherapy sessions in the classroom, but I would try to get them back to functioning, and I'll show you in a minute how to do it. And restricted range of affect, you'll see that in kids that are having a really, really hard time. Mostly just flat, sometimes barely laughing, barely crying, barely anything, okay? Watch out for those kids. Those are the hardest symptoms. We are into hyperarousal, it was asked before. So the first thing would be difficulty falling or staying asleep. Kids will say, I don't sleep. Okay, I think parents are dealing with that more than anybody else. Irritability or outbursts of anger. Those are the behaviors you're going to see. Okay, kids that are super irritable. They cannot handle it. They cannot hold it. It sits in their body, the stress level, and then it comes out in class, and it comes out with irritability and outbursts. You will see that. Inability to concentrate, hypervigilance, right? And exaggerated startle response. So just constantly watching. Think about it this way. They went into survival mode. Someone attacked the community. Everybody went into survival mode. When I go into survival mode, everything, I have to watch out for everything, right? Everything is dangerous around me until my symptoms and until my feeling of survival is safe, and then I can take down my guard. Well, some people, the guard doesn't go down and the body is still stressed. It's like the tiger is still walking around the village, right? So when that happens, my body is ready and it's ready to go all the time. And you will see that, okay? The way to deal with it is to not avoid it, to say, whoo, that sounded like something. I see that your body had a reaction. It's okay. That's our body's way of protecting ourselves, because that's exactly what it is. I'm not lying to the kids. I'm just saying it in a reframed way that they can understand it. This is the body's way of telling me that it's on guard. It's really ready to go. It's guarding me, but it's unpleasant. So would you like to do something about it? How about if we just go for a little walk? How about if we shake our body completely? How about if we take some breaths? How about if we go outside and come back? Different techniques to move the body, but you don't ignore it, okay? You tell them, I see that this is going on for you. Name it, reframe it as the body's way to protect yourself. Body's smart. It's on guard. Good for it. What do you want to do about it? Because it's unpleasant right now, okay? Very, very basic, very, very simple. I also do it with outbursts of anger, and some kids can take it well and some can't. So you want to watch out with that, because I always say when I am angry like that, it means something is up with me. I'm never just angry. That's how I talk to them. I'm never just angry. So when I'm angry like this, always, it means something's up. I wonder what is up for you, because I know what happens to me when I'm like that. Okay, get them to talk instead of behaving. That's another way to do it. So a little crash course about the brain that would super, super help you, I think. The green part is where we think from. That's the frontal lobe. This is the organization, the executive function, of the brain. The blue part is our limbic system. This is our emotional system. And the red one would be our survival brain. Okay, this will be our fight, flight, freeze response. This is where we use, this is what we use when we think we're in danger. Now, everyone's red part was activated in the shooting. Even if you were at home, even if you were watching it from the TV, everyone within the community, the stress reaction was on. Everyone. Now, the limbic system is the emotional. We were scared, we were angry, we were pissed off. I'm sorry, but we were, crying, you name it, ranges of emotions that were coming out. Now, when that happens, the green part does not really work. When the limbic system goes crazy, the green part is not working well, at least. So when I have a kid throwing a tantrum or having an outburst, it's not going to help me to speak to him logically. It's not going to do me any good. I can tell him, well, you know that it happened 2 months ago. You know that, you're safe. Well, duh, he knows that. He knows that. It's not helpful when he's going like this. So when a kid's limbic system is going nuts, you want to talk to that. You're not going to talk to this. And that is also works for kids in general. But after trauma, you want to understand that it's not going to help them if you're going to speak to them logically. Okay, like it's, it happened a long time ago. We're good now. No, you want him to tell you that she's good now. You want it to come from him understanding something. And then you know that this is back, right? So we'll give you an example in a few minutes of exactly how to do that. But this is really where we're going with this. In order to get them functioning, we need the green part to come back, because then they're thinking logically. But sometimes the blue takes over, fear takes over. And if you have a trigger and someone is re-experiencing something, then your red and your blue are on. Okay, and then it takes a minute for this thing to calm down and for you to be able to do something with it. Now, Tracy, do we have any questions before I continue?
So the questions are more specific.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to address them now or you want to wait.
Then I'll wait for a second and we're going to get to the tools and then.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully. Yep. So the first thing that I ask myself every time I do a mental health intervention during a rocket attack, or when I have somebody in my clinic, or when I think every time I have an interaction, I ask myself the question, what is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? Right? A kid comes to me and he says, I'm having a hard time, or I'm scared, or a kid is behaving in a certain way that disrupts the class. And we know it's stress related and we know it's trauma related. What is your goal? Once you understand what is your short-term goal and your long-term goal, you'll be able to function better. So what are your goals? If anybody can, respond. What do you guys think? What's your goal? There is no right or wrong answer. You just need to figure out what it is, though. If a kid is coming to you and he's in distress.
Go ahead, just speak up.
I'd like to get him out of distress, to feel not so in the moment of the trauma.
Okay, so you're saying I need him, should I rephrase it as you want him back to functioning, or just
I want him
comforted?
Comforted.
What does that mean, comforted?
Oh, see, he's not so terrified anymore.
Okay, so you want to reduce the one symptom of fear. Is that what you're saying? Okay. The reason that I'm doing what I just did with Rachel, I am constantly trying to get a very accurate reaction. Right? I want to know exactly what she's talking about, because to comfort the kid, I don't know what that means. But if she's saying, I want him not to be as scared. So if he comes to me and his stress level is 10 or his fear level is 10, I want him to come out of the conversation at 5. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's your goal. Okay. What is somebody else?
So we have to start communicating again.
Okay. So you want it back functioning on a communication level, right? To be able to communicate?
Yes. And
validate their feelings and know that this is a place where they can communicate their feelings with you.
So validation is the way you're going to do it. Communication is your goal. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay, good. you want to really be accurate because then you'll be able to get there. It's kind of like if you have the application of Waze or Google Maps or whatever, right? If you're going to put A to B, you need to be clear about B because otherwise you're going to get somewhere else. So I want to know what my goal is. So a lot of the times teachers will tell you, and that's okay too. My goal right now is to not to disrupt the class. I want the class to continue. I want to be able to stabilize the kid enough so he can function in class. My long-term goal is for him to maybe be more confident or maybe to be able to have more self-efficacy or whatever it is, right? Sometimes we have different goals. And sometimes the goal is just, I need this class to continue right now. I really need to go through the materials. I don't think anybody would actually do that when it comes to kids in distress. But if it is, it's okay. But usually the way to get there is to stabilize the kid and to reduce some of the symptoms, right? That's a part of what we're going to do. So a few, I guess, basics about the teacher's role. Your role is to get him back to baseline. Your role is not to make the kid happy. And I'm going to say it again, because for most people, it's not very clear. Your role is not to get the kid to forget the event, to forget that the trauma happened, to not remember it, to ignore it, or to be happy, happy, joy, joy. Your job is to bring him back to his baseline, his functioning mode. Okay? If you can do that, the rest is to go back to the parents. That's where the anchor is. That's who's supposed to be taking care of it, or professionals, but really to take him back to functioning in the baseline. Not dwell on emotions. Kids are going to come to you and they're going to say, I'm really, really scared. I'm thinking about the trauma, or I'm thinking about the shooting, and I'm really, really scared. Do not dwell in emotions. If you're going to dwell into emotions, you're going to take the blue part of the brain, you're going to make it bigger, and it's going to be harder and harder to get him back to functioning. So we say, I hear that you're scared. How scared are you? 0 to 10. How scared is he? I'm going to tell you 10. If a kid is very scared, he's going to say 10. He's going to say 12. Okay. The smarty pants are going to say 12. And then you're going to look at them and you're going to say, okay, well, how safe is it right now? How safe is it? Like right now, where we're at, how safe are we? Are we safe right now in the classroom? Are you safe with me? Are you safe next to your friend? Are you safe, right? You speak in safety rather than in scared or risk. A lot of the times they're going to hear themselves say, I'm scared 10, but I'm safe 10. Okay. Usually if they hear it from themselves, you'll see that the fear goes down because they talk it. You say, well, I'm actually safe. It goes down, and try it out. I mean, it's hard to explain it until you do it. You know, we do it with kids that they have rockets flying over their heads and they're able to get there. It's pretty amazing. So it's really the way you phrase it and what you say. Because I'm not going to talk to them just about their fear. I'm not going to dwell in their fear. I'm going to dwell in their safety. Right? I'm going to say that. And I'm not going to ignore the fact that they're scared. I'm going to give them things to say a number to them. Gain control. Anything that you can do to get them feel like they have a sense of control, because a school shooting, a parade shooting, rockets, whatever that is, makes you feel that you have zero control over your life. Okay. And you don't know when the next one is going to come from. So you want to give them control over the things that they can control. And right now, when someone is scared, and I say, it's unpleasant to feel scared. It really is. What do you want to do? Would you rather sit right now next to me? Would that make you feel a little safer or better? Or do you want to go for a walk to the secretary and come back? Air out is not going to do it. Any kind of control, right? Give them choices, make them kind of feel like they can have some sense of control throughout their day. Anything you can do to create that within the classroom setting. Okay, and that will give them back a sense of self and a feel that they have something. Emotional regulation, we're going to talk about it in a second, because I fear that this is going to be the biggest thing. You're going to see a lot of kids that are not regulated and pretty scared. Unregulated means 0 to 100, very irritable. So something, they can't sit in frustration because the body is in stress or residue of stress. So they go from 0 to 100, right? And it's really, really hard to control a classroom like that. So you want to have some ideas of how to create some emotional regulation. We're going to do it in a second. Physical activity, stress sits in the body. It sits in the body. And if you see symptoms of stress on the kid, you want to get them going. So either have some kind of a deal with the secretary or someone that says, if I'm going to send a kid to you with a book, say thank you and give him another book that you don't need to return to me, because he needs to do something to go in and out, to just take energy out. That's one. Two, you tell them stress sits in the body. Psychoeducation is a big thing. They need to know what's going on for them. I tell them when I'm stressed, I feel it all over my body. It's normal. It really is. Let's do something about it. How about a game? How about a song? How about anything that we can do? Take it to reduce it. With little kids, it will work like magic. With teenagers, good luck. All right? Teenagers are a whole different breed. They will act it out. They will not say it a lot of the times. With teenagers, I always talk about myself. I say, this is what I do when I feel like this. I hate it. It sits in my body. I feel like I can't stand myself, or I'm crawling out of my skin. This is what works for me. I don't know if you want to try it out. Do you have anything that works for you? That's with teenagers. With little kids, you give them a game, you give them something to do physically, and you have them. But make sure you do, because they need movement. The stress is in the body. And I cannot tell you how many people these days, especially when we talk about computer games and all that beautiful thing that kids do on their phones these days, how many of them are not active enough? And after a trauma like this, they should have been, going up and down the street, running and taking this thing out of their system. And I don't know how much of it has happened. My guess is maybe 50%. Any questions until now? Let's do this right now, Tracy, and then we'll continue from more stuff that I have.
You want the specific questions now?
Sure, yes.
Okay. So how do I respond to students who idolize, let's see, what happened? Of course, I inform social worker, try to change the topic. How do we help as a team?
What do you mean
And then-
idolize? What happened? How do they do that?
I will explain.
Yes.
I have a student who appears to have been in those situations where either somebody was shot next to them or something like that. And in the classroom, when this particular student speaks to another student, they feel, when I hear them, it's like they're feeling like it was like a reward for being in quote unquote gang group. And in addition to that, the student will will use tools in the classroom to create resemblance of high powerful rifle and try to practice in the classroom. How do I respond to students who get to that point?
How old is this kid?
14.
The age of 14?
Mm-hmm.
He has bigger things than only this trauma, right?
He has experienced quite a few in his life,
Right.
family or community where he is.
Right. So this is his way of saying, I count because I have experience. This is his time to shine. He has something that nobody else has, right? Maybe? Like when I think about him, like when you say these things, I'm thinking, okay, he's proud of something because
Very
all of
much
a
so.
sudden, right, he has a card. He didn't have it before. Until now, he was the underdog, right? In a way. Dealing with all these traumas. Nobody likes it. But now these traumas are paying off. You can say that he survived them. He knows what to do. He has experience. Listen, the instinct or the intuition or, I guess the automated response wants me to tell you, hey, kick him out, right? He should be out. This is not normal. But a kid like that, you need to figure out what his strength is. I would ask him, listen, you've been there before. What worked for you? What worked? Something that you did worked. You know better than everybody else here how it feels, and you know better than how everybody else here what to do with it. What worked for you? Help us out. I need your help. The best, I think, sentence that I can think of when I work with people that just had trauma and when I need to get them out of there, or when I want to talk to kids and I need them to engage with me, I tell them, I need your help. I need your help. You know this, you've been through this. Tell us what works. Share it, okay? And then put boundaries around the language. But bring him up because he wants to be up, right? He needs it. But make him shine instead of put a cloud over everybody. That's what I would do with him. I take it as a strength and I will reframe it as a strength and say, I need you, help us out. Good for you for having, not good for you, but it's awful that you did, but you can do something good with it. So use it, let's do this. Does that make sense? Does this
It does
help?
make sense. It makes sense. It makes sense because I'm dealing with it and I'm looking at it as a student who is grieving. Yeah, he's very new to me. I just met him Monday last week, and that same day on Monday, he shared a very traumatic experience he had. I did discuss with him. I told him that, all the things that we already know, we have been trained at work on how to work through the grieving. There are steps. So, and I connected him with his social worker.
Unfortunately, he knows stuff that no one should know. And I would reframe it like that. Unfortunately, you know stuff that really no one should know.
May I ask you a
Can you help?
question?
Yeah.
My population in the classroom comes from two different worlds, one from one planet, one from another planet. If I let this kid shine to telling me on what he has experienced out there, I feel it will traumatize the other population that has never been exposed to those things. Do
That's
you
why
think?
you only talk about things that work. You don't talk about the gory details. You really don't talk about the trauma. You talk about what works. When I'm scared, or when I was in a situation that I thought I lost control, or a situation that something was very, very bad and very, very scary happening, I did this. My brain went there, my emotions were there, my physical body went there. I always break it down into three things, right? What did I do with my body? What did I do with my thoughts? What did I do with my heart? And give us some examples of what you did. This is a complex situation because you don't want to traumatize everybody else, right? This is why we don't do debriefings anymore, because we realize that by telling the story again and again and again, we're traumatizing people that have not been in the room, really. But what you want to do is you want to give them a chance to talk just about the coping, just that piece. How did you cope? What did you do? Because he's doing it. This kid lives it and he's doing it. He's very resilient. How? I'm dying to know how. Right? If you put it this way, if you poke an interest that way, then you don't have to talk about the details of the trauma. That is unnecessary. Just talk about what works.
Is this sort of thing done off class time? Because I see if I started this in the middle of class, I could get the whole class into the same problem where they weren't before.
Right.
And my goal is the lesson plan.
Right.
It's not to solve his problems. So it's my best thing to try to resolve this off class time, talk with parents. And I meet my kids once a week on Sunday morning. And I have very limited contact.
You don't have enough time. So if your goal is to not have enough disruptions through class, that's why I asked, what is the goal first, right? Then you will have to have that conversation with him outside of the classroom. But
Yeah.
And you won't be able to do that in the middle. I always feel that there's value in it one time. Try it one time, give him the stage, and hopefully that will take care of it. Because once you give him that stage and you have that conversation with him, and he can share his knowledge or wisdom or whatever it is, and he got his fix. And next time he will have a connection with you. So next time when you just look at him and say, how about if we don't do it right now? He will have that respect for you and he's not going to go there. You build some kind of rapport by giving him and allowing him to actually have and tell his story. He has a story to tell, this kid that she's talking about. He has a story and an awful one at it. So if you're able to do it one time and kind of lose the lesson plan, well, I hope nobody from the principals are not listening. Lose the lesson plan once in a while, right? And because a kid cannot learn if there's something else on his mind. Kids do not learn when their stress level is high. We know that. Stress level goes up, learning goes down. That's what it is. So if they just had a trauma in the community and their mind is there, they're not learning anything. anyway. So if you give them a platform, 1 session, 2 sessions, clear it, get it out of the way, especially at the beginning of the year, then you'll have a better platform within the classroom, I think, to do some more teaching. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Perfect. Any more things, Tracy?
Well, so actually, I think you just addressed the other one, which is how will we know when to address the entire class and when to speak to just one student?
All right, perfect. So we can continue, yeah.
Yeah, and then isn't there value and strength from the lesson plan occasionally? Yep, everybody's on the same page.
Perfect. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to continue. There's more stuff coming up. Where is it? There you go. So we talked about the teacher's role. I want to move on to, well, there we go. Reduce symptoms. Really our goal or our role is when it's happening during classroom or in the hallways is to reduce symptoms, right? To be able to get them to function, get that frontal lobe going, be able to reduce the stress symptoms if they have it. Bring them back to functioning into the baseline. We're not doing therapy. We're not going into tell me exactly what was going on for you, what happened. Don't go there. You never know what you're going to find. It's kind of like the Forrest Gump sentence, right? It's like a box of chocolates. Trauma is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to find because a lot of the times, one traumatic event will bring to the surface a different one that you were not aware of, that you have no idea happened in that household, whatever it is. Do not touch it. Don't go and therapize kids unless this is your job. Okay? So be very careful. Your role, I think, is to let someone know that you're seeing something out of the ordinary. And you guys have professional eyes. You know when a kid is off. You know, teachers know more than anybody because they see kids all the time. Modeling. If our stress level is high, their stress level is high. If we're irritable, they're irritable. Now, if a kid is irritable and he has an anger outburst, and I said something, and then I said something again, and then at the third time, I was raising my voice, going from 0 to 100, what do you think he's going to do next? He's going to model you, and he's going to do exactly the same. He's going to go from 0 to 100. Okay? Modeling is a huge thing within a classroom, and it's a huge thing for parents. If I cannot regulate my emotional answer, then the kid is not going to be able to do it. So when he's going crazy, I need to be able to regulate my emotional response and to answer him between 0 to 40 and not be at 100 like he is. This is the only way to go because you're modeling a behavior. You're gonna answer a kid that is having an outburst with a scream, with a shout, with raising your voice, with saying, you know what, I have had it with you guys, and you know, and right now everybody take out your pens and papers and whatever. Don't do that. Because the minute you do that, you're really mirroring their behavior and you're modeling exactly that. Kids that are not emotionally regulated, kids that are having outbursts are not going to learn like that. Okay. So that's a no-no, and we're going to go to what's yes in a second. No assumption. Do not assume you know what's going on for a kid. Don't assume. I know that there was a big trauma. You don't know what else is going on for them. You don't know what else happened this morning. Make no assumptions. Always ask questions. Rule of thumb. I do that in my clinic all the time. People come, they say something, and I always look at them and say, okay, you said that word. I have no idea what you mean, because it can mean a million things. What exactly are you talking about? Do not assume, because if I assume, sometimes I plant something in their heads that wasn't there before. That is a dangerous, dangerous thing. Okay. So speak resiliency in the classroom. Resiliency really means the ability to bounce back from a trauma. Resiliency means to be able to grow after a traumatic event. Not to say that it didn't happen. You resist, you recover, and then you reconfigure. Okay, that's really what it is. When we talk resiliency, we speak in language of strengths, resources, challenges, and what works for me. Now, a great activity, if you want to get to know your kids really fast, create a resiliency seal. Okay, the way to do it is really, really easy. You take a page, you fold it in 4, you tell them, what are my strengths, what are my resources, and you explain each and every one of them. what are my challenges right now and what works for me? Make them fill it out and think about it. And if they're stuck, they can go to a friend and say, I don't know what my strengths are. What is my strength? Today, I did the same activity with a staff that is working with at-risk youth, okay, in a center for at-risk youth. And I worked with the staff and we did exactly that. They had to do their own resiliency seal. And you know what? They were scratching their head saying, I don't know what my strength is. Like, I really don't know. And they had to go and ask their friends and kind of get feedback on what they're good at. Now, a kid would tell you, I run fast, I climb, I don't know, stuff like that. But you want to make sure that he's even more accurate. Okay. I'm smart. Okay. What does that mean? I can figure things out. Okay. That's a strength. Right. So be very accurate with them, help them out, get their resiliency abilities. This way, one, you know the kids, you know what works for them, you know what they think their strength is. You can remind them of that. Another thing to do is to take that thing, turn it into like a mandala, like make it an artistic thing, put it on the board everywhere in the classroom. Everybody has challenges, but everybody has strengths. Everybody has one technique that works. When they're really struggling, send them back to the board. Go look at yours. And if you can't find anything for you, go look at someone else's, right? But start talking like that. Now, you can create a resiliency seal for individual, and I encourage that, but I also encourage having a classroom one. So for those of you that teach in day schools, that see the kids a lot, create a resiliency seal for everybody, for the classroom. What works for the classroom when things are hard? What are the strengths of this class, right? What are the resources in this classroom? And what are the challenges? So break it down. It's easier for kids to deal with things when it's broken down like that. Validate, don't ignore. That's also a resiliency approach. Validate. We're not ignoring the fact that we have issues. We are validating it. We're saying, I'm scared. I can see that you're scared. I'm uncomfortable. I see that you're uncomfortable. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm just angry. I can see that. It's okay. You're angry. What do you want to do about it? That's a whole different thing. Okay. But you validate their feelings because you want to make sure that they understand that they're being hurt. Kids that don't think that they're being heard, what do? Scream louder. Interrupt you even more. Create a mess out of your class. That's what they do. If they think you don't see them or hear them, that's what they're going to do. You want to give them back sense of control because resiliency means I can do something about it and create opportunities for small successes. I cannot stress this one enough. Give them opportunities for small successes. You finished just this part. Amazing. You've done this. Very great. You are feeling, kvetchy and uncomfortable today and not good with yourself, but you managed to do this and that. Great. Anything. Break it down to small chunks and make sure that they feel some kind of success because you can build on it the next day. They can build on it the next day. Really. Okay. Any questions until now? I know it's tiring. Sitting in a Zoom session after an hour, everybody wants to faint, myself included. So if you have any questions, that is a great time to do it. Okay, then I'm going to move on.
I have one question.
Yes.
You went really fast on the SEAL thing and strength, resources, and then what are the other two?
Let me show it to you. I'll just show it on the whiteboard. So the way I do it is this way. I take a paper or I take a circle, okay? And I cut it in 4. And then I write on one side my strengths, right? My resources. Resources can be my parents, resources can be my dog, right? Anything that is outside of me that I can use. Then I'm going to write down my challenges. It's hard for me. And right next to it, I'm going to write what works. What usually works? When I'm like this, when I face this challenge, what do I usually do that works for me? Because I tell people, you're scared. Let's say you're scared. And you're scared right now. But, an hour later, you stop being scared. What happened? What'd you do? What worked? Some kids will tell you, well, I was distracting myself with a movie. Okay, that works for you. Some kids will say I went for a walk. Some will say I went to play soccer. Some would say I went and I got a hug, right? Everybody's different. So they need to know what works for them because we're trying for them to be able to see how much they can do. Really raise their self-efficacy. Kids that have that tackle the most important thing in trauma, which is helplessness. People that are helpless, feeling that they're helpless with trauma, are the ones that are more sustainable for susceptible to post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, they're more open to it, and we don't want that. So we're tackling that by talking about what they have, what they can use, what works for them. We're trying to get them out of that helplessness zone. So I hope that makes sense. Did that
What-
answer?
I
That
have a-
makes a lot of sense. And I'm a former Marine, so I know a lot of what you're saying.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
What do you think the title of that chart should be for kids? What would you put on the top?
I call it the resiliency seal.
Yeah.
My resiliency seal, that's what I call it here, but whatever. I mean, again, this is another way for them to create success and to gain control. Ask them, what would be the name? We're going to do an activity. How shall we name it? Get them to do that. It doesn't matter how you're going to name it. Bottom line is what you're going to get, and the result is good. I mean, that's what I would do again. There's no right and wrong answer here. You guys know your kids better than anyone. You spend many hours with them, so you kind of know what will work in your classroom. Any more questions? Any other questions? Okay, so I'm gonna continue. I think I'm gonna hold on. I need to get out of the resiliency. I just go back to it 1 sec. Where did you guys go? Hold on. There we go. Sorry, I have like some computer stuff here going on. Okay, there we go. All right. So we are looking at step 1, the way I see it. If you see something, first assess your symptoms. Look at you. If you're seeing something in the classroom, understand that there's a lot of parallel process stuff happening in classrooms. Check yourself first. See, did you bring to the classroom a lot of stress today or not? Did you think about the trauma a minute before you walked into the classroom? Were you on the phone a second before and then you walked in and then you stopped, right? Think about what's going on for you. Because if your stress level is high, it's going to happen for your kids. Okay, so pay attention to that and assess your symptoms first. First, take care of yourself. Gain back control. Some physical stuff. It doesn't take long, by the way. Awareness is key. If you're aware of it, it takes 2 minutes. Because then you can shift your mindset. As adults, we can do that. We can do that very fast, but you have to be aware of what's going on for you. Do not walk into a classroom full of kids in a community that just had a trauma without stopping for a second, doing like a little checkup from top to bottom, and then walk in. For the sake of these kids and for the sake of you, I think, to have a good day, you want to do that. Especially after a rough encounter like you guys had. Assess the class and look at your critical mass. Because let's say I have 20 kids. And out of those 20 kids, 5 of them seem to be off today. 5 of them are bouncing off the walls. 5 of them are not at their baseline. Something's up. That's 25% out of your classroom. You're starting to have a critical mass here that can mess up your whole day. I would not just continue. I would do something. I'd say it. The first rule is bringing up to awareness. I see that something is going on, you guys. What is going on? I see some behaviors. I see that people are restless. Let's talk about it for 5 minutes and then it will save you the rest of the class. But don't let the critical mass, right, to take over. Watch out for how many kids you have that are disturbing the classroom. But again, under consideration that you had a traumatic event. Now, the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of classes are going to be just like that because this is their chance to see everyone and talk about how everyone experienced it. They want to talk about it. That's normal and that's to be understood. And you got to allow it and give it some time. If not, those 5 are going to turn into 10. So I would pay attention to it and watch out for that. Assess the individual. If you have one person that is having a hard time, look at their symptoms, see what they're at, what they are. Look at their affect, look at their emotional state, look at their outbursts, where they're at. Now, assess your colleagues. Don't forget the other teachers. A lot of the times we think we're doing okay, and one of our colleagues is not. Somebody's having a harder time. The community lost a teacher. I think I'm right on this one, right? That's not an easy thing. It's not just grief that you guys are going through. It is a traumatic one. So having said that, it cannot not be talked. And I'm not saying let's have therapy sessions all the time, but check up on your colleagues, because people are going to have bad days and good days, and sometimes they're not aware. Watch out for their stress level. See if you can help them out. Okay, to reduce it, give them some control, tell them that that's what you're seeing, bring it back to awareness, and kind of tell them, okay, what do you want to do with it? Check for exposure. Cannot stress this one enough. Kids are exposed to all of these stories on the phone. The phones are the worst thing that was invented by man, if you ask me, since I don't know what, okay? Since mac and cheese. So really, pay attention to what they're exposed to. They're exposed to the phones, they're exposed to conversations, they're exposed to things within the community. Everybody's talking about it. This is the biggest thing that happened in this community in a long time. So make sure that they're not overly exposed. Make sure the teachers' conversations are in check, and that there are not no kids around when you guys talk about it, when you talk about, you know, your feelings around it and how you see it or whatever. Any kind of a conversation, political or not, it doesn't even matter. Put it in check, okay? Because it does stress them out. It stresses them out, and it creates even a crazier, I think, environment within the classroom. I see that there's another question. Tracy, do you want to look at it for a second?
Our children have been in secular school for a few weeks before we start with them. Does that make a difference in how we handle the first day?
I would wait and see what they bring, because maybe they took it out there and you're good, but I would wait, because this thing hit the Jewish community a little bit, right? So not even a little bit, a lot of it. So you want to give them a different platform to talk about it, but maybe they've done the initial ventilation somewhere else, and that's okay. You want to see what they bring culturally to the table. I would wait and see what they bring, and you know, maybe it will reduce, and maybe you won't see a lot of these symptoms, and then good for us. Basic tools, you normalize it. Stress lives in the body. It's okay to feel the way you feel. This was a pretty intense event. It's okay to be scared. Normalize it. If you're having, you know, heart palpitations, like your heart is racing when you hear something that sounds like a gunshot, or when you hear that there was a shooting somewhere, it's okay to have it. That's normal. Normalize it, so they will understand that they're not crazy. That we're not crazy when we're having these responses, right? I have kids come to me and say, I don't know what to do. Like every time there's a motorcycle in my town, every time there's a motorcycle, everybody's hearts start racing, because it sounds like the beginning of a siren. Okay, it's tough to live like that. But when you tell them that is normal, because to you and to your survival mechanism, it sounds like a siren, and your body's trying to take care of you. It's okay. It's unpleasant. It takes a hold of your body. What do you want to do? Let's release it, okay? But don't ignore it, and normalize it as much as you can. Empathy is a huge tool. People say they know what empathy is. I can tell you, guaranteed, half of the time they don't. If you want to know empathy, go into Bernays Brown, YouTube, the best one, the great one. The thing with empathy has to be accurate, has to be precise. It cannot be general. So for example, if a kid is going to tell me, I'm really scared, and I hate the nights because I can't fall asleep because I'm too scared, okay? I can tell him, well, that sucks. Well, that's a bummer. That's empathy, right? That doesn't do me any good. You want to say empathy is, you know, when I try to sleep, and I'm too scared to sleep, that's really tough. That's really hard. I can understand that. You go and you're very, very specific with your empathy. If you're not going to give specific empathy, it's not, you didn't give it at all. Also, if you're going to give empathy and then you're going to say, but, then you can throw away your empathy. Okay, because you just disvalidated everything that you said. Okay, so if I'm going to tell him, yeah, it sucks not to sleep, I know, but you know, you could just do this and this. Yeah, no. Give empathy. Stay for a second. Reframe. Sounds to me that some nights you're not sleeping. Okay, like reframe. What works for you usually? The nights that you do sleep, how did you do that? Okay. Do you see the difference? It's a very different way of talking to kids. And it's a way of getting them first to talk to you, second, feel like they've been heard, and third, get control. Get back to control. Physical symptoms, do not ignore physical symptoms. If you have somebody that is having them, it's very severe, like a panic attack, call someone that knows what to do. But generally speaking, a panic attack, you want to tell them what's going on for them. You want to normalize and say, okay, it's your body reacting to something, or probably something reminded you of something. That is normal. This breathing, that means your body is really, really it's trying to tell you that something is off. Let's look around, see if everything is okay. Be with me, eyes on me. I'm with you. I'm not leaving you. Now let's do some breathings together. Okay, I've done a few things here. One is psychoeducation. Explain to them what's going on in their body. 2, I validated them. 3, I told them, I gave them control. Look around you. All right, get out of yourself and look around you. That's another way of doing it. Okay. 4th, I offered a solution. Let's do some breathing exercises together and trying to give them any kind of functioning back. Okay, that's how we do it, and we do it fast. Now, breathing exercises, I want to just give you one that really works like magic. It's called 5-2-5. It comes from vagal breathing, is what it's called. Now, just as an idea for resources, if you go on YouTube and you look for vagal exercises, okay, anything for vagal tone, you will get a million of them. There are so many YouTubes around it. The idea is that we have the biggest nerve sits right here in our brain, and it goes all the way into all of our internal organs. Okay. One of the functions of the vagal nerve, the vagus nerve, is to control anxiety levels and depression. Okay. So if we use the breathing and we help activate it, it reduces anxiety. That's really the I guess the physiological aspect of it. It also helps with infections, by the way. If you have good vagal tone, you're less likely to develop I guess a tough reaction to COVID, for example. That's some of the results that we have after COVID-19. Okay, people that with good vagal tone, they were less open and prone to get all these diseases. So the way you do it is 5-2-5, 5 in through your nose, 2 that you hold, and 5 through your mouth. The way kids remember it is you smell a flower, so that's through your nose. You hold it for 2, and then you blow up a candle. You blow out the candle, right? So you go through your nose, smell the flower, and then you blow out the candle. Slow it down as much as you can. With kids, I always count for them, or we do it like we take the hand up, the fingers, and then we take the hand down. Whatever works for you. Okay, like you do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the way to remember it is from the flower and the candles. Okay, what's out and what's in. Try it out on yourselves first. I'm telling you, I do it all the time. When I feel a little nervous, it works. You give them roles and jobs within the classroom. Every kid should have something that he's in charge of. If you do that, then you'll have something to channel them to when they're feeling distressed. Okay, you can tell them, hey, why don't you go and do this? Subtext versus text. A lot of times kids are going to say something to you and they mean something totally different. Pay attention to what it is. Now, teachers have an ear for it, they have a knack for it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be teachers. But a lot of the times when I have trauma in something and we all have a shared reality, it's harder to hear it. So pay attention to what someone is saying to you. Okay, if they're saying they're scared or they're afraid or they're uncomfortable or they're angry, ask questions, but see if there's something underneath it. Because sometimes they will tell you, I'm very angry, and they're saying, help me, I can't stand myself right now. Like, help. Okay, watch out for the subtext because it will help. Now, we have like a few minutes left, so I just want to take a minute to ask to see if anybody has questions, and then I really want to do this one because this helps. Any questions?
The only thing in the chat was a clarification that it had been misrepresented that Jackie Sundheim, one of the victims, was currently a teacher. Sorry, my computer is, she taught preschool at North Shore Congregation Israel at least 15 years ago. She was a staff member at our congregation.
Okay. All right. I apologize. She was a current teacher. Okay. Thank you. So one of the things that we want to look at is emotional regulation. Okay. That's the hardest thing to do, especially when someone is having a hard time. So a lot of the times what I do is I ask the kid to tell me the story. Tell me what's going on for him. And he can tell, and I do it, and I really do. I just go and I say, okay, here's square one, here's square two, here's three, here's four, here's five. And I really do it, I summarize it. So tell me what happened, then what happened, then what happened, then what happened, right? And then, like, I needed a pencil. I asked, I don't know, Michael, didn't give it to me, so I hit him. Okay, like that. Okay, now what you want to do a lot of the times, and then the kid is very, very angry. If you start breaking it, you want to go and say, okay, you asked for a pencil. Okay, what do you need it for? I needed it for this and that. Okay, that makes sense, right? I asked Michael, okay, and then he wouldn't give it to me. Okay, what happened then? I was mad. Okay, so just go over these emotions. And when you were mad, what did you do? Just break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down. So this is for a stupid story of a kid that took something from someone. When it comes to trauma, when they're going to tell you something from this traumatic event, you want to break it down for them. You don't want to go fully into the story, but you just want to break it down for them and say, okay, so what exactly is the issue? I am very scared right now. Okay, what am I scared of? I'm scared that the noise outside, I don't know, that something's going to happen outside. Okay, what would make you feel better? Like, this is where I stop. What would make you feel better? Do you want to go and poke your head out the window? Do you want to take a minute? Like, every time somebody tells you something, you want to break it into chunks, really, and give it a different perspective of what's happening on the outside. Okay, you take it down every time and you break it. Now, when you are accurate, when you bring perspective, when you reframe it and you do a 0 to 10 scale, you really get a hold of all of it. Okay, now a lot of the times, I'm going to add one more thing. It's called a capsule in time. So when a kid is saying, I can't take this, I'm having a hard time, or I don't know if I want to go back to school, this is too much, this is whatever, you want to put it in a time capsule. This is how you feel right now. This is how you feel right now. And maybe you're going to feel like that for another 10 minutes or 15 minutes. How about if we sit in it for 15 minutes? What do you want to do after that? Okay. What do you want to do after you're angry? What do you want to do after you're scared? Let's say we're scared, and I'm going to give you some time to be scared. What do you want to do after that? Always look beyond it. Don't dwell in it. Give it a minute. Give it validation. Put it in capsule and see what's up there. Okay, I see that there are a few questions, so I'm going to stop for a second and allow it. So we can get through it.
Sorry, no, I put the evaluation link in the chat.
Oh,
and the
okay.
Questions were about the fact that it wasn't working.
Okay.
So.
So the
I'm-
one thing that I want to say is that some of the questions were about fire drills and lockdown drills and all that. These are bound to create high stress level for everybody, okay? The best way to handle it is to talk about it and to plan it. To plan it when there's going to be a fire drill. How scared are you going to be, do you think? What are you going to do? Okay. What would work for you? Let's say we're going to have a drill and then it's going to feel scary. Which part is going to feel scary? Just walking in the hallways with everybody. Okay. When you would do that, what do you think would work for you? Plan ahead. Help them plan it, because this is bound to bring some peaks of stress throughout the school, not just for the kids. I'm telling you right now, also for the teachers, for the staff. Now, after something like this, you don't want to just send them back to class and start, let's work on math. See if anybody's having a reaction. Make sure the parents know. Make sure that they know when they get their kids in the afternoon that we had a fire drill. It was a little stressful. Kids had reactions because they're going to go home and they're going to behave it. They're going to be either, bursting with anger, or they're going to be closed up and the parent is not going to know what to do with them. You have to be communicative and you have to know that this is going to bring a peak of stress. But the more you talk about it, the clearer you are about the steps of it. Break it down every step of the way. With little kids, let them draw. Talk it out, let them draw. With older kids, say, okay, how about if we assign friends? Everybody have a friend together, okay, to do it with. So that's my thought about fire drills. I really believe that it's an issue, and you guys can definitely handle that. I see that somebody's asking for the email. Sure, I will be in town on the 5th. I'm going to be in Chicago, and Adi and I don't see Adi. Oh, here she is. Adi, can you open your camera? Adi is my colleague because we both thought it was an hour later, so she could join only later. Adi, can you open your camera? There she is. Okay. So Adi and I are going to be in Chicago September 5th. And we're going to do the training all the way to the 9th. So we will be available for questions if anybody has them. And we can write down in the chat our mail. And if you guys want to, send us stuff, that's good. And we can just reply then. We're at your service when it comes to that. So I'm going to write down my mail. Adi, would you do the same?
So I want to thank Ayelet for a wonderful, rich presentation. I learned a lot. I'm hoping all of you did as well. It is recorded. We will get it posted on the JCFS website. I don't know about you, but there were pieces that I thought, oh, I might need to go back and listen to her say that again. There was a question about whether you would share the PowerPoint.
Sure, I can do that. Not a problem.
Okay. So
I just have to go through Max for these kind of things. But
okay.
Sure.
So we will work on that, and whoever your connection is at JCFS will have that available. Ayelet has mentioned several times that she and Adi are going to be in town. That is going to be a 2-day teaching to learn how to respond in the immediate aftermath of trauma, and also then expanding to a train the trainer, so that we will have a cadre of local trainers who can train more people in the community. What else? I think
that's
that is it. I know that there was a subgroup that wanted to be able to meet.
Yes, North
small
Shore
group.
Congregation Israel will, my understanding is, Tracy, you'll put us into a breakout room.
Yes. So I am going to create so I put the link to the chat I put the link to the evaluation in the chat. I would really appreciate it if people could do the evaluations. That gives us really good feedback. I am going to create a breakout room. It is for people from North Shore Congregation Israel. If you do not work at North Shore Congregation Israel, please decline the invitation. Because I'm sending it to everybody. I don't have the
Sure.
list of people.
No problem.
And then I assume that if people have additional questions for Ayelet, she could probably hang out for 10 minutes or so, perhaps, and
Sure, I
answer
can
a
stay.
couple of questions. It's a special thanks for hopping on so last minute. And and apologies for the miscommunication about the time. And we hope everyone has an enjoyable rest of their Sunday.